Hey, what's up, Superdads? I'm here today to talk to you about how important exercise variation is to continued progress. Now, at least within the high intensity training community, if you want to call it that, there appear to be two camps. There's a third camp that you associate with the traditionalists. And so let me lay out their positions real quickly here. First, you have people like Doug McGough, people like Jay Vincent, who talk about exercise almost like it's a recipe. And if it's a high quality recipe, if you like the results you get from the recipe, don't change the recipe. And so they will basically have you do more or less the same thing every time. Then also within the high intensity umbrella is somebody like Kevin Richardson from Naturally Intense, who instructs people to do something new every single time. None of his workouts, he never repeats a workout. I'm sure he repeats a workout, like 1 month later, he'll do the same workout or something like that, just because there are only so many exercises you can do, but never two in a row that are the same, something like that. Okay, so a lot of new variation, a lot of new stimulus, that kind of stuff. Okay, and then people outside of the high intensity training community typically will say that um, anything works if done with high consistency and with high intensity. Anything will work, but nothing will work forever. And so their recommendations tend to be every 3 months or so, you want to change the exercises that you're doing somehow. Change it up so that you get a fresh stimulus. All right. So here is what I think the truth is. First, I think everybody, all of these people, are actually preaching more variation than they're aware of. Well, maybe not Kevin Richardson, but everyone else is actually preaching much more variation than they're seemingly aware of. And that is simply due to the fact that none of them are going to drive you away, are going to dissuade you from engaging in progressive overload. Every single one of these people are going to be zealots in regard to progressively overloading and trying to do more, either more volume or more repetitions or more weight as as you progress. And I hate to break it to them, but progressive overload is not distinct from variation. It's just one kind of variation. Sure, you can make variation come from change new different exercise selection, or you could shorten your rest periods, or you could do more volume or less volume, right? And in terms of hitting a body part more or something like that. But progressive overload is just one variation of variation. It's a subtype of variation. Because think about it, if you lift for more reps or you lift heavier weight, that is a new stimulus for your body. And so, really, when they say just focus on, progressive overloading, do the same thing week after week and just get stronger at it, they're saying change your workout every time. Wow. Big surprise there. Okay. They also, and this goes for the people in the HIT community, will also say, and really any community will say, if you stop progressing, all right, that you should probably change something. So even people in the Jay Vincent camp who will say like, plateaus are totally normal, will still say, yeah, but if you reach a plateau and you stay there for a while where you're doing the same exercises each week, but you don't seem to be getting stronger, you can't progressively overload those exercises week over week. If it continues for more than a couple weeks, it's time to change something. And what people in the HIT community will often suggest is that you reduce your training volume, do a little bit less, and see if that doesn't make you stronger. And I have seen that work with clients. I've seen it work with myself. People who use a more traditional approach to resistance training will say, probably do more volume, add more volume to it, add another set, or add some supplementary exercise or something like that. Regardless, either one is telling you that when your progress has stalled, legitimately stalled, that it's time to change something. So again, we see variation showing up. I had a recent experience with this. I was trying to, back squat 100 kilos for 20 reps, trying to work up to that. And I had gotten up to 17 reps or something like that one week, and then the next week, I wasn't there. I only got 7 reps. I just didn't have the strength. And just coincidentally, the week after that, I was on a family vacation in Korea and completely changed the way that I was training. Didn't do back squats, did leg press machine, and worked out more regularly. And just it was a change. It was a lot of change. And when I came back, I got under the squat bar and got 20 reps with it. So I'd gotten stronger despite laying off the exercise that I was trying to get stronger at. So the value of variation in an anecdote form there. Okay, so why is variation important in my opinion? Well, there are a lot of reasons, but I'm going to focus on three, two of which are pretty short. So first, it keeps things fresh. If you aren't keeping things fresh, you're going to lose your psychological edge. It's just desensitization happens physiologically, but it also happens mentally. If you know you're going in and you're just doing the same thing and just doing the same thing, you kind of over time will lose that fire, regardless of what you do. All right. Oh, what am I trying to do this week? I'm trying to get 2 more seconds on the leg press than I got last week, and over the last month, all I've gotten is an extra second or two each time. It's very tough to keep up the same fire and the same motivation, and if you don't have the right mindset going in, you will not make the kind of progress that you would like. So it keeps things fresh, it keeps the challenge, it keeps it interesting. It allows you to explore and try new exercises and things like that. Okay, the recipe analogy from before is fine. You find a recipe that you like, but if you make the same recipe every time, you will develop palate fatigue, even if it takes you for a month or two to reach palate fatigue on it, right? Try adding new ingredients, and you may find something you like even more. Try other recipes, you may find something you like even more. Okay, so that's one. Second one would be injury. Now, for those of you who are doing high intensity training properly, this is less of a concern because you might be doing like 1 to 2 sets of like leg press or something like that a week, and you're very unlikely to incur overuse injuries. But for anybody out there who is doing a more traditional approach and they're getting, whatever it is, 7 to 20 sets per muscle group per week or something like that, you are at risk for overuse injury probably sooner than you think, especially if you're pushing the weight up each time. And by introducing more variation, and particularly we're talking here in exercise selection, so changing up the exercises, you're changing the movement patterns and you are short circuiting the potential for overuse injuries. So those are two great reasons in my opinion. Now, the third one, I don't have proof for, but it seems highly possible to me. And this has to do with how your body adapts. Now, one of the major reasons that people give for why you don't need as much variation in your exercise is they will say your muscles don't know what exercise you're doing. They only know things like tension, things like duration. They're not, intelligent enough to know that it's a new stimulus or the same stimulus. All they know is how much tension they're having to output and for how long, and that's then what drives adaptation. This, in my opinion, is likely an example of killing something in order to dissect it, which is what science often does. In order to study one thing, they break apart a larger system that, if you look at it as a system, it has synergistic emergent effects that you can't divine just by looking at the parts of that system, right? It's how they interact that creates those systemic effects. And so if you just look at what do muscles know, because muscles is where the adaptation we're looking for happens, well, then you lose the fact that your muscles aren't the only things that are doing work when you're exercising. Your whole body is working, the whole system is engaged in it. And so if you were to say, well, what might be aware of, let's say exercise variation taking place? Well, guess what? Your nervous system is absolutely aware when variation takes place. That's one reason why you get sore when you change up what you're doing. That's one reason why if you might be super strong in your upper body, but you go kayaking for the first time in your life and you end up being super sore despite the fact that you're pulling muscles and all of that, your shoulders and everything, your wrists all are all strong as hell, but you haven't done that before, and so it's a new stimulus for your nervous system, and so because it's a new stimulus, your nervous system perceives it as more of a threat, as something that it needs to adapt to, more quickly and more aggressively. Okay, so that's why you feel soreness. That's one explanation for it. We don't really know that much about muscle soreness. But is it not possible that your nervous system adapting and muscular adaptation are not coupled together somehow in your body? Like when you do something new, your brain, right? It's not just your nervous system that changes. There are new pathways that are created in your brain, and myelination occurs in order to improve your performance at that skill. So physiological changes accompany nervous system adaptation. So why would your muscular system not potentially also be along for the ride? So I guess what I'm suggesting here is that when you provide your nervous system with something that it perceives as an unknown stimulus, or and therefore a more threatening stimulus, that it wouldn't, say to your muscular system, hey buddy, like this appears to be a greater threat than what we did last time, the stuff that we always do. So we're gonna turn up the adaptation, dial just a little bit more. I think it's highly possible, and it's one explanation for the bro wisdom of everything works but nothing works forever. Sort of change it every 3 months. I would, and this is where we get to my recommendations. I would recommend, however, that you change it even more than once every 3 months, because again, progressive overload is just one kind of variation. So what do I do, and what would I recommend to you, and what do I recommend to my clients? That is something like finding some exercises that you can repeat week over week in a progressively overloaded fashion. So for me, it's like if I'm doing a leg workout, it would be a back squat, something like that, right? Because I can track the weight, I can track the reps. Now, I'm trying to progressively overload, and that's where the variation comes in. But the real reason I'm including this exercise is because I can tell, based upon whether I'm able to progressively overload, whether I have, increased my strength on that exercise. And that is an indication of whether I'm recovered enough, whether I'm eating enough, whether my approach to training is effective. It's more like my gauge of whether my training, my approach to training has been effective or not. And alongside that, those staples, right? Whatever that staple is, for me, it's a back squat for legs. Okay, then I will include a lot of variation in every other exercise. So then I will do something that's a style of leg extension. Maybe it's a sissy squat, or maybe it's a knees over toes lunge or something like that. Some style of. Then I'll do some sort of hip hinge movement for my glutes and hamstrings. Maybe it's a hip thrust, or maybe it's some sort of slider exercise for my hamstrings, or a Nordic curl or something like that. Do something for my calves. Maybe that's jumping rope, or doing footwork for sort of boxing style footwork drills, or maybe it's uh, calf extensions, right? Calf raises for reps or something like that, right? But I'll be changing that around. Pretty much all of those will be changed around pretty much every time that I do a leg workout. Okay. So have a staple and then have a lot of variety. And that way you're covering all your bases. All right. So there you have it. That's my opinion on how important variation is to making progress. Might not be the mainstream, but I think that the evidence is there. A bit of critical thinking would lead pretty much anyone who engaged with the issue to these conclusions. If you have any questions or comments or a different opinion, I'd love to hear it all. Put it down below. If you want to join the Facebook group, links down below. Also, all the programs, exercise programs for people who don't have time, who don't have equipment, and don't have space, and all that stuff are down below. Okay, thank you so much for your attention, and go be super.